This is Miriam and Eddie. We both do casework for Asylum Link. And we decided on our talk was going to be based on "You'll Never Walk Alone," which we thought really appropriate for Liverpool. However, then somebody come and told us that maybe it would be better, more appropriate, if we change this and cross this out and say you should never walk alone, because unfortunately we can't guarantee that this is the case. So Miriam is going to start with, we're both caseworkers, Eddie and Miriam, and away you go.
I thought we might have spent too long on it in the last meeting talking about the process. But anyway, to try and go through it quickly. Asylum seeker arrives, they have to then go to claim asylum in Croydon. It's called, they have their screening interview. At their screening interview, they are given emergency accommodation support, and that's called Section 98. It's a whole new vocabulary with everything as you learn, and then it changes, doesn't it, as you're learning it. So Section 98, and then they are dispersed, and Liverpool and places that you are all from are the places that these people are dispersed to. They should then automatically receive a Section 95. So they've arrived in a city they know nothing about, they may or may not speak English. Section 95, on Section 98, they get £5 a day with the emergency accommodation, which is only supposed to last a couple of days. Then they automatically go on to Section 95. Not always, we have some people who come in and they haven't received the Section 95, so we help them to get the Section 95. We do that, we do a lot of the work that we do through a charitable organisation called Migrant Help. We ring Migrant Help. They say, you get a recorded message saying, sorry, nobody can answer the phone, you are number 100 in the queue. So that limits the amount of people who we can see, obviously, if you're waiting each time. Some days it's 40, some days, it's great, isn't it?
It's a minute a person, isn't it? Number 40 is 40 minutes.
Yeah, but you don't even know that, do you?
No.
Sometimes it goes from 5 to 0, so you've got somebody waiting there. And we're all in a room. One of the things that we didn't mention last time was privacy. None of the people who come and talk to us have any privacy because we're all together, working together. And that's a really good thing that we're working together, because between us caseworkers, I'm always saying, what do we do, who do we ring? There are so many things and so many problems that people come with that you need all our joint expertise, experience. So, again, Section 95, accommodation that Ewan was talking about, or the council was talking about, which is usually in fairly unpleasant surroundings. And once again, just over £5 a day, £37 something cash. That changes to, it's called an Aspen card, and that changes to that amount of money that you can spend in certain shops. And that money includes your travel, so that where your accommodation is in relation to the school that your children might be going to, the hospital you may need to attend, coming to Asylum Link, that's all part of your £5 a day. So you've had Section 98 and Section 95. If that claim doesn't work, if it's dismissed by the Home Office, then we can apply for something else called a Section 4 if you've got more reasons to claim asylum. The Home Office hasn't considered something. So you claim Section 4, which also, as that claim is being considered, once the Home Office have said we are considering you for a Section 4, you can then still have accommodation and the money, and then that is decided if that outcome is good and you get granted leave to remain for 5 years, then we were saying before, cause for celebration. Within Asylum Link we have NRSN for refugees. You go from being an asylum seeker to becoming a refugee, so they're two different things, two different statuses. One's asylum seeker, one is refugee. As an asylum seeker, you're not allowed to have a bank account, you're not allowed to drive a car, you can't rent accommodation, and there are lots of... You can, sorry, and the biggest thing is you can't work.
Can some people work though? Because we've got asylum seeker who's given right to work.
There's a small category, there's a list of, if you're a brain surgeon or an astrophysicist or I can't remember what they are, but they're very few, aren't they? It's a very small list.
for a decision for more than a year.
If you've been waiting for your decision for more than a year, maybe that was the case.
No, he's got a PhD in medical physics.
But giving people that dignity to work, where they would have the opportunity to learn the language, to be part of a community, as well as contribute to society, seems to me a no-brainer. It's the obvious thing that should be allowed to do. As a refugee, you have 28 days between being given leave to remain and being moved out of, well, kicked out of your accommodation. You have to sort out your benefits and get your national insurance number and find a job. So it's a great day for joy, getting leave to remain, but it's also the beginning of a very another journey. If your Section 4 application is not successful and you remember that you have further evidence, or there is another thing that you haven't included in your original claim, something that's completely different, then you can make a fresh claim. But it has to be something completely different to what you've already told the Home Office. Or you can accept voluntary return, in which case the Home Office will pay for you to go back to wherever it was you fled from, which is another issue. The things that we do in casework are we help people to fill in forms, lots of different kinds of forms. One of them for the NHS is called to get an HC2 certificate, which means that you get free prescriptions and dental care. Otherwise, if you don't have that certificate, then you will be charged for everything. But we can ring a number with the NHS and get those charges cancelled. But that's something most of them who come to us can't do, so we do that for them. We help to deal with accommodation issues. The provider in Liverpool is Serco, so we have to liaise with them. They have problems in the accommodation. It may be they're on the top floor and they have a baby and a toddler, and getting up to the top floor and there's no lift. That's a problem. There may be health issues and somebody can't get up the stairs. The cleanliness and the hygiene in these places is also somewhere that probably most places. Right, well, thank you. So maybe you can tell us a little bit.
A lot of the agencies in the room do similar work to Asylum Link, and being the contact that they do contact, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that advocates on behalf of our service users. But the relationships you do build, and like you said, we will receive calls, and it could be
Could you say where you're from?
Serco, so the accommodation provider. It can be anything from something that's quite small that someone may not have the confidence to tell the housing officer, to something that could be a safeguarding issue that we may not be aware of. So it's vital to
Could you tell me, when somebody has Serco accommodation, that's really good that they've got accommodation, because their alternative is being homeless, being destitute. If they leave, if they don't stay in their accommodation, if they go and visit somebody somewhere, then you change the locks. I don't know how long that is.
No, people are allowed. There is rules set out by the UKBI that they should be staying in the accommodation that they are assigned to. But it's not a matter of I want to go see so-and-so in Birmingham. It tends to often be Birmingham for some reason. We're not going to go around and change someone's locks because they decided to leave the house for anything.
So destitution is a big thing.
Can I just follow up? If somebody's put in a detention centre, it goes from the Home Office to register and then sent to detention centre, what happens to their belongings?
The belongings will be put into storage for a certain amount of time. Sometimes we may get a letter from that person and we don't see that side of things. We'll put it in storage until we get it requested to send down to them.
Can we just say, sorry, please, if you have any questions, just fire away, because we have such limited time here. And also, when the people you just mentioned, people being detained, asylum seekers have to go and sign. Sometimes it's fortnightly, sometimes it's monthly, it could be longer. But every time they go, there's a potential for them to be detained. At that point, they're taken away and put in, effectively, a prison. For somebody who hasn't committed a crime, and everything is taken off them. Their phone, they're given a phone, but if you can imagine somebody taking your mobile phone off you, which most people have nowadays, all your information is on there. So now we have to advise people to write down critical numbers, because that phone, nobody's going to give it to you back and say, oh, here, you make a few phone calls using this, you're given a phone to make a couple of numbers which you haven't got. So it's a very stressful and appalling situation to be in. And every time the asylum seeker goes along to report, this could happen. And they worry all the time about it. So, sorry, carry on.
Destitution is really difficult if the asylum seeker doesn't have, if they've lost their Section 95, if they're between making a new application, particularly for women. There are not many places in Liverpool that you can stay. You can stay, well, we try and get them into the Seal Street Sisters of Charity. I think they have accommodation for 12 people. There's more accommodation at Lavery House, which is great, but the people at Lavery House, not asylum seekers, have their own problems, so they're very difficult and chaotic places for asylum seekers to be. There was a Libyan lady who was with us recently who preferred to sleep in Lime Street Station than be in a hostel because she felt so vulnerable. We deal with financial questions and interpreters until the language classes are fully subscribed, so all the time people need help with interpreting if they don't want to speak English.
What proportion of people are turned down now when they make a claim?
I think it's very, very high actually. I think it's about 70 or more %. However, on appeal, something like 70% of those are then reinstated. So initially you'll have your claim refused, yeah?
So mental health, something like that.
I'm not sure precise figures.
The Home Office say that that's the reason why appeals shouldn't be allowed, because so many are refused. And I think they've misunderstood the whole point of what an appeal is about. And the way we'd rather look at it is that really just indicates that the wrong decision was made in the first place. The initial decision is made by a Home Office worker in an office, maybe with no legal training whatsoever. And it's when people go to court and then actually apply law, that's when the percentage goes up. But overall, I think 35% roughly are rejected outright and absolutely, and end up destitute. And we get to see 800 new faces a year, I think. That means 250 people a year will be made destitute and in receipt of no help. Maybe 25 do return home, but we still have the 225 who are just left in the country. And it's what happens to them is a real concern. Because we support about 70 of them through a destitution project at Asylum Link, but we're still left with 180 who are going underground and managing somehow. Now we know what they're doing. They're cleaning our cars, they're delivering our fast food, they're cooking our £2.50 chicken chips and canned Coke and things like that. But they're the better off ones. It's what's happening to the other people who are prey to all sorts of criminals, all sorts of influences using and abusing them. They've got no recourse to public funds, which means they're only available for emergency health care. So you've got someone who's got a bit of a cough, 6 months later he's still got a bit of a cough, and up comes a bit of blood, he still can't go to a doctor. when he actually becomes unconscious, the ambulance service are called and he's taken to hospital and they realise he's got TB a year and a half into the process, then something can be done. But in that time, how many other people could have been infected? How many of our lives, my children's lives and our lives have been put at risk? And it's not the fault of the people concerned at all. They're great people who've done the right thing. They've escaped to try and save their lives and they've refused to return to their death because none of us have the right to do that. And it's not their fault in any way whatsoever. But destitution is a big issue. And we've tried to ask, there was a question on the quiz, it's a trick question actually, that said how many destitute refugees are there in the country? And the answer is the Home Office won't tell us. The Home Office tell us they don't know. I think they're imagining that some destitute refugees jump underneath lorries and go over to Calais. So I don't know how they think they leave the country, but they're sort of saying we don't know how many are in the country. They do know, they just don't want to admit because the scale of it is horrendous and it's growing and growing. You can't expect people. They get a letter at the end that says you've got 21 days to make arrangements to leave the country. This is someone on £37 a week being told you've got 21 days to go back to your death. How many of us would take that choice? None, isn't it? So destitution is a really big issue.
Do you have any questions? I'm just aware of the time. Any more questions? There's plenty more we can say about what it takes to be a caseworker. Not very much. You need a bit of time. That's one of the main things.
And there are very sad times, but it is also a very fulfilling job role. It is,
And it's very necessary as well. The more we teach people English, the more questions they have as well. It's amazing.
Can I just, one observation, I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking about how it's not just asylum seekers, as it happens in the UK in general.
Yes.
So if you like the DLA, you know, when people went from DLA to PIP, they were just reduced drastically, and then they had to go to appeal, and then they go to appeal, then they win the appeal. So maybe it might be a little bit helpful for the asylum seekers to know that it's not just them that this is happening.
You're quite right, and I do say that as well.
Yeah, because
and then you can always see them thinking, I walked all those thousands of miles to get here for some justice, and
it is about
you
managing
don't
their
have
expectations
Our
as well. Is so flawed. Our benefit system is so flawed because the thousands of pounds it takes you to go to appeal, to go to that court hearing, and all the rest of it. It's mad.
And to access things like help for mental health are for us, for all of us,
Crazy.
including asylum seekers.
Yes.
It is very difficult.
If somebody is destitute, if it was a family with children, is there an obligation to educate the children in primary or secondary school, even if they're not getting any support?
I think up to the age of 17, yes. The local council has the obligation to...
Yeah, the obligation there is through social services, social care, if there's children at risk. The option for them is to take them into care, but of course they don't do that because that's not the right thing to do. And we have a social worker who works in the centre who's capable of applying a lot of pressure, isn't he really, to bring about good conclusions in that case, yeah.
So when a family arrives in the middle of a term, say, is there an obligation to educate them as soon as they arrive, or do they have to wait till the next term?
Well, we'll ring schools up and ask them have they got places.
It depends. I mean, I think Faye spent the day ringing round schools, looking at this particular family were living and working her way out. And you rang 7, 8?
Yeah.
Something before they had a space.
But the question, is there an obligation to offer? What's the legal duty of
social care have to? Yeah, social services.
Because we've had families said to us they've been refused to say they won't find a place until they're permanently placed.
The schools will say, we will not find a place for you, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But when it reaches a point where you can demonstrate that you've visited several schools and asked, and they've all said no, then they will step in. They will step in. Yeah, they will.
Can I say as a head teacher?
Yeah.
What will happen is they appear at the door of the school. They
Yeah.
walk past a school. They appear at the door of the school. If you have space, you will take them. But if there's no chair available in the school and there's a waiting list, then you can't take them, and so they would then go on to the next school. Lots of schools at the minute are at top level.
The
Most
question-
schools in the areas are full,
That's
and
helpful.
that is the issue.
Okay, the question was about what's the obligation? What's the legal obligation?
To find a school.
authority, isn't it?
Yes,
To
of
find
course.
it, yeah, to find a school, but you have to find a school that's got a space, which may be 3 bus rides away.
If you're struggling
If
and
not,
it's
my
an active asylum
accommodation.
seeker, just get in touch with, ask them to get in touch with the housing officer, and if it's in the Wirral, I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
If it's outside, for anyone that works outside of the Merseyside area, just again ask them who's your housing officer, give them a shout, because we might not always be savvy to the fact that they're not getting into the schools, and that's where we will pick that up and assist them.
James Power is the admissions manager for Liverpool schools, and he's really
Thank you for that. We've just been told that we've run out of time. There's lots more we could say. I'm sure you have lots more questions, but we will be around. You know, if you have any more questions, you know, feel free to just grab us later.
Can I just ask one thing? Do you have to be a social worker to be a caseworker?
The answer, simple answer is absolutely not. So neither of us are social workers.
But social workers definitely bring
Yeah.
something
So
to the
we
table.
have
There are some.
foreign students who can hardly speak the language to do it. Senior medical practitioners, teachers, IT practitioners, everybody.
Good.
You can do it.
Thank you.